Luis, my husband, was in the final stages of cancer, hospitalized and waiting for the inevitable. On the last day of his life, our son supported Emma, a woman with silver hair, elegantly dressed in a fitted cheapao, as she appeared at the door of his hospital room. Luis clutched Emma's hand tightly, tears streaming down his face as he sobbed, confessing his deep regret. Meanwhile, my son and his wife spoke to the media, glorifying the so-called tragic and transcendent love between Luis and Emma, praising their romance as something beyond worldly constraints. Before he took his last breath, my husband changed his will, leaving all his wealth to Emma. Kneeling beside him, my son vowed that he would take care of his mother Emma for the rest of her life. I was so infuriated that I died in the hospital on the spot. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Luis forced me to take the fall to protect Emma. This time, I let go willingly, and applied to the military medical university. #Chapter 1. Amelia, something terrible has happened. Luis and Emma were caught sneaking around in the cornfield, having an affair. The patrol team arrested them. You need to go check on it now. My cousin burst into my house, out of breath. A loud buzz filled my mind. Suddenly, I realized I had been reborn. I was back on the very day I had been forced to get engaged to Luis, all to cover up for Emma. In my past life, Luis and I had grown up together as childhood sweethearts. Ever since we were kids, Luis had proudly declared to everyone that I was his future wife. Back then, my whole heart belonged to him, waiting for the day my childhood sweetheart would marry me and bring me home. But everything changed when Emma was sent to our village. From that moment on, Luis never spoke of our engagement again. He pitied Emma for being frail and weak, so he secretly gave her the work points he had earned from an entire day's labor. When he heard Emma hadn't eaten meat in a long time, he immediately sold the fountain pen I had gifted him and took her to a state-owned restaurant, ordering a big plate of braised pork for her. Then, one night, he and Emma were caught sneaking into the cornfield together. When the patrol team caught them, Emma was trembling like a frightened rabbit. Desperate, Luis came to my house, dropped to his knees with a loud thud, and begged me to take the blame for them. He said that since our families had a verbal engagement, it wouldn't be considered too serious if an engaged couple was caught together. It would be shameful but not a crime. But Emma's family background was questionable. If she were labeled as a woman with loose morals, she would surely be sent to a labor camp for re-education. At that moment, I hated Luis and Emma with all my heart. Yet, for the sake of Luis's future and reputation, I stepped forward and lied for them, claiming that Emma was only there to deliver a message for me. That the real person who had been meeting Luis in the cornfield was me. #Chapter 2. After the incident, Luis and I were forced into a rushed marriage. But because I had sullied my reputation by sneaking into the cornfield with him before marriage, I was branded as an indecent woman. Years later, when the national college entrance exams were reinstated, I managed to pass. But during the political background check, someone anonymously sent a report to the university, accusing me of immorality. Because of this, I was disqualified. For the next few decades, I was trapped in the countryside, serving Luis's parents, bearing and raising his children. I toiled day and night, waiting for a chance to leave, but it wasn't until my son's wife needed postpartum care that Luis begrudgingly agreed to bring me to the city. By then, Luis had already become a high-ranking official, and Emma, thanks to his influence, had secured a job at the prestigious military hospital. They were now respected city elites, living glamorous lives. Meanwhile, I was just a dirty country hag. Behind my back, people sighed, saying that Luis's only regret in life was marrying a rural woman like me, that he had missed out on the elegant and beautiful military doctor Emma. But no one knew the truth. If I hadn't taken the fall for those two adulterers, they would have been sent to a labor camp for re-education. With a moral stain like that on their records, they would never have had the chance to go to university, let alone return to the city. I thought about all the humiliation I had suffered in my past life, about the bitterness and injustice that clung to me even in death. Fury surged through me. I shoved my cousin aside and ran to the village headquarters, crying as I went. In my past life, I had been too worried about Luis becoming a public example. I had rushed over in a panic, only to be guilt-tripped, manipulated, and coerced into taking the blame for him. But this time, I was going to make a scene. I was going to let the whole village know exactly what kind of man Luis really was. Chapter 3. Village Chief, I want to report Luis for having an affair. Everyone in the village knew that I was Luis's betrothed. So the moment I shouted, the entire village ran after me to watch the drama unfold. There, in the middle of the cornfield, Luis and Emma sat breathless, clothes disheveled, clinging to each other. The moment Luis saw me, his eyes lit up. He immediately shouted at me. "Amelia, tell them the truth. You were the one who asked Emma to meet me here. You didn't show up, and Emma accidentally fell in the cornfield. I was just helping her up when the patrol team found us. They're accusing us of having an affair, but we're innocent. Tell them, Amelia." I stood still, staring at them in silence. Emma bit her lip and gently nudged Luis. Luis's voice turned sharp and commanding. "Amelia, now is not the time to act petty or jealous. This is about Emma's and my reputation. You need to explain the truth, right now." Emma lifted her head, eyes filled with tears. Her voice trembled as she pleaded. "Amelia, I know you're upset that Luis takes care of me. But you can't frame us like this. You were the one who asked me to invite Luis here. And now you're turning around and accusing us, playing the victim. Even after living another lifetime, these two still had the audacity to frame me." I let out a cold laugh and exposed Luis's pathetic lie on the spot. "Oh, you're saying I asked Emma to call you here?" Luis clenched his jaw. "Yes." I sneered. "Then let me ask you something, you two were caught right after noon, weren't you? If I remember correctly, right after lunch, I told you I was rehearsing a model opera performance with Alice and the others. Tell me, Luis, how could I be in two places at once? How could I be rehearsing an opera and meeting you in the cornfield at the same time?" The villagers burst into raucous laughter. Chapter 4. Luis's once fair and handsome face flushed red with anger as he stared at me in disbelief. His lips trembled as he questioned me. "Amelia, do you really have to ruin Emma and me? You know the army is coming for the political review in a few days. How am I supposed to pass now with this mess you've created?" I stepped forward, raised my arm, and with a loud PAH, I slapped him hard across the face. "Luis, you dared to roll around in the cornfield with a landlord's daughter, and you still dream of joining the military? Wake up. You love Emma. Then break off our engagement and be with her openly. But what did you do instead? You wanted to use my father's reputation as a war hero to secure a place in the army, while still clinging to Emma, the delicate young lady of a landlord's family. Luis, a man like you is not worthy of wearing that green military uniform." Luis staggered from the slap, dazed. Emma immediately rushed forward and held him protectively, her eyes filled with grievance as she looked at me. "Amelia, Luis is about to enlist. At such a critical moment, how could you throw dirt on him?" Luis looked at her with gratitude. "Emma, you're the only one who truly understands me." I let out a cold laugh. Without warning, I grabbed a fistful of Emma's hair and yanked her violently toward me. Emma shrieked in pain, clutching her head. "Amelia, what are you doing? Let go." I tightened my grip, my other hand raised high in the air. And then, smack. One slap. Then another. My palm landed again and again on her delicate, pampered face, turning it red and swollen. "I was so busy dealing with him, I almost forgot to teach you a lesson. You dared to frame me. You dared to seduce my fiancé. Oh, and by the way," I sneered, releasing her, "this kind of man, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. You love picking up trash. Fine. He's all yours." Luis finally snapped out of his daze and rushed forward, pulling Emma away from me. By then, Emma's once delicate and flawless face had swollen like a steamed bun. Chapter 5. Seeing his beloved Emma beaten to a pulp, Luis's eyes burned with hatred as if he wanted to devour me alive. He roared at me, his expression vicious. "Amelia, you're nothing but a crazy, unreasonable shrew. I'm warning you. If you don't apologize properly to Emma today, consider our engagement over." I laughed coldly. "Oh, and how exactly do you want me to apologize?" Luis froze for a second, then his expression shifted into smug confidence as if he had finally found my weakness. He sneered. "You let your jealousy blind you, causing a huge misunderstanding between me and Emma. Because of you, Emma suffered humiliation and nearly had her reputation destroyed. So here's what you'll do: go to the village headquarters, use the loudspeaker, and apologize to Emma in front of everyone. Publicly clear her name." Emma, still clutching her swollen face, sobbed pitifully. "Amelia, my face. After the way you hit me, I won't be able to show myself in public for at least half a month. But if I don't go to work in the fields, I won't earn work points, and I'll have no grain to eat." Luis tenderly touched Emma's swollen cheek and then turned to me, giving orders like a self-righteous saint. "Since you were the one who beat Emma up, you should take responsibility. For the next 2 weeks, you'll do her field work. And since Emma won't be earning work points, she won't have grain to eat. Go home and bring 20 gin of grain to compensate her." Emma looked up at him with gratitude in her eyes. "Luis, you're such a kind person." I stared at these two shameless scumbags openly flirting in front of me. Then I thought about how they had deceived me for an entire lifetime in my past life. A cold laugh escaped my lips. Without hesitation, I grabbed a broom and swung it straight at them. Say I framed her. Say I bullied her. Fine. Let me show you what real bullying looks like. The woven bamboo broom was incredibly painful, leaving bright red welts wherever it landed. Emma screamed in agony as I rained down hit after hit. Luis shielded her, but the bamboo slashed across his face, leaving long, bloody marks like a cat had clawed him. Blood seeped from his wounds. He staggered back, dragging Emma with him, and shouted at me in panic. "Amelia, stop. If you don't stop, I'll go to your house right now and call off the engagement." I laughed mockingly. "Great. Call it off. If either of us backs out, we're the bastard child of a dog." Then, I turned to the gathered villagers and announced in a loud, clear voice. "Everyone, listen up. From this moment forward, Luis and I are no longer engaged. From today onward, we go our separate ways. Luis has nothing to do with my family anymore. Ending an engagement. That was just the beginning. I had far bigger plans. I was going to expose Luis for the fraud he was, without my father's connections. Let's see how far he could go." Chapter 6. In my past life, Luis's rapid rise in the army had nothing to do with talent. He didn't earn his promotions, he used my father's name. My father, a war hero, had lost an eye in battle and was forced to retire. But he still had many old comrades in the military who respected him and never forgot about him. Luis shamelessly used those connections to climb the ranks. He even leveraged my father's influence to get Emma into the prestigious military hospital. Everyone thought they were helping me and my father by supporting Luis. But in reality, the person who benefited from everything was Emma, the woman who stole my place. This time, I would make sure that Luis never left this tiny mountain village. Chapter 7. When I publicly declared our engagement over, Emma was secretly delighted. But Luis's face turned dark. "Amelia, are you done with your nonsense? I've already told you, I care for Emma only as a comrade. If you're still worried, fine. Once my enlistment is confirmed, we'll go straight to the commune and get married." I raised my hand to silence his self-important drivel. "Absolutely not. You two were already sneaking around in the cornfield. If I marry you now, won't I just be putting a green hat on my own head?" The villagers burst into raucous laughter. Luis's expression turned venomous. "Amelia, think carefully. I'm about to enlist. If you marry me, you can follow me into the army. Once I get promoted, you'll become a city woman, eating fine rations instead of working in the fields. But if you break off the engagement, you'll end up marrying some farmhand and spending your life toiling in the dirt." I smirked. Then, I turned to the village chief and said loudly, "Village chief, Comrade Luis just openly mocked the working class. With an attitude like that, does he even deserve to join the army?" Luis's face went completely white. He turned stiffly to the village chief, panic flickering in his eyes. Chapter 8. Luis thought that the village chief had always admired him and would surely protect him this time as well. But he forgot one crucial thing: the only reason the village chief had ever supported him was because he was my father's future son-in-law. Sure enough, the moment I declared that I was breaking off our engagement, the village chief's face darkened. "Luis," he said sternly. "You had a formal engagement with Amelia, yet you snuck into the cornfield with another woman. Your moral character is disgraceful and you've brought shame to our brigade. Starting tomorrow, you and Emma will be sent to the farm to shovel manure. Use that time to reflect on your actions." The moment Luis and Emma heard this, their faces turned ghostly pale. I smirked and turned away, leaving them to drown in their own despair. In my past life, at this exact moment, I had been hiding at home, drowning in tears as the villagers mocked and shamed me for taking the blame for Emma. But then, an opportunity arose. The village clinic was selecting candidates to train as barefoot doctors to improve rural healthcare. At first, the village chief wanted to recommend me. But because of the scandal Luis and Emma created, someone reported me as an immoral woman, and I was disqualified. Emma ended up taking my place instead. It was that very experience that later allowed Luis to pull strings and get Emma transferred to the military hospital. But this time, I was going to take back everything that had been stolen from me. Chapter 9. When I arrived home and saw my parents, my eyes turned red with emotion. "Dad, Mom, I want to break off my engagement with Luis." I told them everything: how Luis and Emma had been sneaking around behind my back, how they were caught in the cornfield, and how Luis had tried to force me to take the blame for Emma. In my past life, I had kept everything bottled up. That was my mistake. That was why Luis had been able to manipulate and take advantage of me. But not this time. My father, who had always doted on me, was livid. "That bastard," he roared, grabbing his hunting rifle. "I'll kill him." I hurriedly stopped him. "Dad, let him be. If he's so desperate to ruin his future for a woman like Emma, then let him rot with her." My mother, on the verge of tears, wiped her face with her sleeve. "But what about you?" she cried. "Everyone in the village knows you were engaged to Luis. If you break off the engagement now, how will you find another match?" My father snorted angrily. "Then she won't get married. Even if my daughter stays single forever, I will take care of her for the rest of my life." I quickly reassured them. "Dad, Mom, listen. I heard that the village clinic is selecting people to train as barefoot doctors. I want to apply. I'm still young," I said firmly. "I'll work as a barefoot doctor for a couple of years first, then we'll see." My father nodded in approval. The very next day, he pulled some strings and got me a registration form from the village clinic. As I sat at home filling out the form, the door suddenly swung open. Luis and Emma walked in. Chapter 10. Luis's gaze flickered when he saw the registration form on the table. Forcing a smile, he said, "Amelia, you misunderstood what happened yesterday. I brought Emma here so we could apologize." Emma walked up to me with red-rimmed eyes, her voice trembling. "Amelia, I'm sorry. I was just so scared yesterday, so I said things that weren't true. But I swear to the heavens, Luis Ge and I are innocent." I let out a mocking laugh. "Innocent? So you're saying you were innocently rolling around in the cornfield?" Emma bit her lip and gave Luis a pitiful look. Luis's heart ached at the sight, and without hesitation, he pulled Emma behind him, shielding her like she was some fragile treasure. "Amelia, if you're angry, take it out on me. Just leave Emma out of this. She's suffered enough." I laughed in disbelief. "She suffered? Tell me, Luis, since Emma was sent to our village, how many days has she actually worked? How much has she actually done?" "Oh, but she's eaten plenty. State-owned restaurant braised pork, supply store canned peaches, white rabbit milk candy. Luis, when you sold the gifts I gave you to take her out to eat, did you ever stop to think who your actual fiancé was?" A flash of guilt crossed Luis's face, but he quickly straightened his back, forcing confidence into his voice. "How can you compare yourself to Emma? She's never had to suffer like you. You grew up in the village." I crossed my arms, my expression cold and sharp. "Oh, so because I grew up in the countryside, I deserve to suffer? Luis, I dare you to repeat those words in front of your military superiors. Let's see what they think of your principles. Luis lowered his head in shame, unable to meet my gaze. Emma's lips pressed together tightly as if she didn't know what to say. Luis, as if he had suffered some great injustice, straightened his neck and declared, "No matter what you say, Emma and I were wrongly accused. Amelia, this is my final warning. Go to the village chief right now and clear our names. Tell him it was all a misunderstanding. If Emma gets sent to the farm to shovel manure because of you, I will never forgive you." Just as he finished speaking, a deep voice interrupted him. "Luis, say that again, who exactly are you threatening?" I turned around. Standing at the doorway, my father leaned on his cane, his expression dark as thunder. Behind him, 2 men in military uniforms stepped into the room. Chapter 11. The moment Luis saw my father, panic flashed across his face. His words became hesitant and shaky. "You uncle, there was just a misunderstanding between Amelia and me. I came to talk to her and clear things up. As a man, I can handle a little unfair treatment. But Amelia falsely accused comrade Emma out of jealousy. She damaged Emma's reputation and got her sent to the farm for re-education. Is that so?" My father cut him off with a cold snort. "If you want to know whether Amelia was spreading lies, why not ask the villagers?" Right then, the crowd gathered outside my house began to speak up one after another. "False accusations?" someone shouted. "I've seen Luis and Emma sneak off to the back mountain multiple times." "Me too." They were even holding hands when they came back down. Luis was engaged to Amelia, but he took Emma to the state-owned restaurant behind her back, using Amelia's money. Shameless. One by one, the villagers exposed Luis and Emma, forcing them to hang their heads in humiliation. At that moment, my father spoke again, his tone serious. "Comrades, this is Luis, the young man from our village who is applying to join the army. I have reason to suspect that his moral conduct is questionable. I request that the organization conduct a strict review." The moment my father finished speaking, Luis's face turned deathly pale. He looked as if his legs could no longer hold him up. Emma, too, had gone completely white. Just moments ago, she had been clinging to Luis. Now, she silently took a step away from him. Chapter 12. As expected, after interviewing several villagers and local officials, the 2 military officers reached a unanimous decision. Luis was deemed morally corrupt, ideologically unsound, and openly disrespectful toward the working class. He failed the political review and was disqualified from enlistment. The moment Luis heard the news, he snapped. He stormed into the youth commune, grabbed Emma by the throat, and smack, smack, smack. He slapped her over a dozen times in quick succession. Emma sobbed hysterically, gasping for air. But this time, Luis didn't comfort her with his usual sweet words. Instead, he roared in fury. "Emma, you goddamn jinx. You already cursed your parents to death and now you've ruined my life too. Didn't I tell you to wait? All you had to do was keep quiet until I got into the army. Once I earned some merit, I would have found a way to help you. But you just couldn't wait, could you? You just had to throw yourself at me, didn't you? Well, congratulations. Now I've lost everything. I can't join the army. Are you happy now, you filthy whore?" Luis tightened his grip around Emma's throat. Her eyes rolled back and her face turned purple. Just as she was about to lose consciousness, the other educated youths rushed forward and pried them apart. Luis staggered backward out of the commune. Then, for some reason, he ran straight to my house. When Luis arrived, panting and disheveled, I was just stepping outside, carrying my luggage. With a loud thud, he dropped to his knees. Then, he lifted his hand and began slapping himself 1, 2, 3 times, without stopping. "Amelia, I was wrong. I shouldn't have given in to temptation. I was tricked by that wicked woman Emma. She only wanted to use me to escape the countryside. She never really loved me. I see that now, Amelia. Let's start over. If you agree, I'll bring matchmakers to propose tomorrow." Before I could respond, my father kicked him square in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. Too late. My father spat. Weren't you the one running around bragging that you were going to join the army, saying my daughter wasn't good enough for you? Well, guess what? Now I'm throwing those words right back at you. My daughter is about to become a barefoot doctor, and later, she can even go to medical school. And you? You're just a worthless criminal about to be sent to the labor farm. Tell me, Luis, are you worthy of my daughter? Luis's head snapped up, his eyes suddenly filled with desperate hope. What? Amelia, you're going to be a barefoot doctor? Uncle, please. Can you get me a spot too? I'll go with Amelia. We can look after each other. Before my father could respond, a tall figure stepped through the doorway. A deep, steady voice spoke. That won't be necessary. I will take care of Amelia. Chapter 13. Since I didn't take up the village's training quota, my father secured my spot through personal connections. The village chief reassigned the barefoot doctor position to another deserving candidate. That candidate was Eric. His grandfather was a martyr who died in the Battle of Southern City. In my past life, that slot had been stolen by Luis and given to Emma. But in this life, I made sure the rightful owner got it back. The moment Luis saw Eric, tall, strong, and dignified, his bloodshot eyes locked onto me with venom. So this is why you were so eager to break off our engagement, huh? He sneered. Turns out you had already found yourself a new man. His voice turned low and threatening. Amelia, I'm giving you one last chance. Get me a spot as a barefoot doctor, right now. If you don't, I'll report you to the clinic for improper conduct with Eric. Then none of you will get to go. My father's face darkened with rage. He lifted his cane, ready to beat Luis senseless. But I stopped him with a calm hand. Luis's lips curled into a smug smile. He gazed at me with fake tenderness. I knew it, Amelia. Deep down, you still care about me. I set down my luggage and walked up to Luis. Before he could say another word, smack. I slapped him across the face hard. Luis staggered back, his eyes darkening with fury. Amelia, are you sure you want to fight me to the bitter end? He growled. I rubbed my slightly sore palm and chuckled softly. Leaning close to his ear, I whispered. Bitter end? Luis, do you even deserve such a battle? I stepped back and looked him straight in the eyes. If this really goes to the commune, Eric and I have nothing to hide. But what about you? Can you swear that you, Emma, and your families are truly innocent? Luis's face went deathly pale. His eyes widened in pure terror. How do you know about that? I let out a soft laugh. If you don't want people to know, then don't do dirty things. Go ahead, Luis. Report me. But know this, if you do, I'll go too. At worst, Eric and I lose the opportunity to be barefoot doctors. But you. And your parents. Helping Emma hide letters from her foreign relatives. And your family. Stashing away all those hidden treasures for hers. Luis's body stiffened. His face drained of color as if he had seen a ghost. Chapter 14. With a heavy thud, Luis collapsed to the ground, his legs trembling so hard that he couldn't even stand. I simply gave my parents a brief farewell before turning away, completely ignoring Luis. Together with Eric, I left. In my previous life, I had stumbled upon Luis and Emma's secret correspondence while cleaning his study one day. That was when I discovered the truth. When Emma was exiled to the countryside, it was Luis and his parents who secretly hid her family's valuables. At the time, Luis had already climbed high in rank, and I worried that if those letters were ever discovered, his political future would be at risk. Like a fool, I warned him to destroy them immediately. But instead of being grateful, Luis scolded me. He accused me of meddling in his affairs and snooping through his things. Looking back now, I finally understood. It wasn't that Luis couldn't bear to destroy the letters. He didn't burn them because they were handwritten by Emma. To him, those letters were precious. Luis must have never imagined in his wildest dreams that in this new life, the love letters he once treasured so deeply would become the very blade I used to destroy him and Emma. Chapter 15. Eric and I had nothing to hide. We walked with our heads held high, unafraid of any investigation. So, upon arriving at the commune, I went straight to the clinic to report in. And then, without hesitation, I walked over to the commune office to file an official report against Luis and his parents for helping Emma's family hide their assets. The commune leaders were furious. They immediately dispatched investigators to our village. And when they arrived at Luis's home, they caught Luis and his parents red-handed digging up treasures they had hidden beneath their pigsty. Ironclad evidence. Shortly after, the verdict was delivered. Luis and Emma were both sentenced to prison. And Luis's parents. They were sent to a labor reform farm to be re-educated through hard labor. After the sentencing, Luis wrote me several letters from prison, begging to see me. I ignored every single one. But then, he attempted suicide in prison. The prison officials had no choice but to reach out to the clinic. So, reluctantly, I agreed to see him one last time. In my past life, at this time, Luis was wearing his crisp new military uniform. Standing tall and proud, rising through the ranks. But now he sat behind iron bars, his head shaved bald, wearing a dull, oversized prison uniform. His once charming features were now twisted with madness. When he saw me, he lunged forward, gripping the bars with trembling hands. His bloodshot eyes locked onto mine. "Amelia, it's all wrong," he cried. "This isn't how things were supposed to be. I was meant to join the army, rise through the ranks. You were supposed to stay home, care for my parents, and bear my children." I let out a mocking laugh. "Oh. And then what? You'd use my father's name to manipulate the system. Swap my barefoot doctor quota for Emma's. Send her to the military medical university. And then place her in the military hospital so you two could live happily ever after." Luis froze. His eyes widened in pure shock. And then, a tremor ran through his body. "Amelia," he whispered. You also came back." "When?" I smiled coldly. "The day you and Emma were caught rolling in the cornfield, and you tried to force me to take the blame." Luis's face turned deathly pale. He muttered under his breath. "That explains it. In the last life, the moment I got caught, you ran to save me without a second thought. You admitted everything just to protect me." I stared at him, my voice like ice. "But what did you do afterward?" "I sacrificed myself to protect your reputation and Emma's. And when the entire village mocked me, spreading disgusting rumors, did you stand up for me? Did you say even a single word in my defense?" Luis lowered his head, his entire body trembling. Silence. I stood up. Looking at him one last time, I spoke the final words he would ever hear from me. "Luis, in our last life, you hated me until the day you died. You blamed me for taking the title of your wife. For keeping you from giving Emma the official title she deserved. But in this life, I freed you. I stepped aside. I gave her back to you. So why are you crying? You should be grateful. You finally got what you wanted." I turned and walked away. Behind me, Luis's cries of agony echoed through the prison walls. A man who lost everything. A man who, for the first time, realized he was the one who destroyed himself. Chapter 16. After 6 months of training at the village clinic, both Eric and I were assigned back to our hometown as barefoot doctors. 2 years later, because of our outstanding performance, we were among the first group of barefoot doctors recommended to medical school. After graduating, we were both assigned to the county hospital. Over the years, Eric and I became closer. In our first year working at the hospital, Eric arrived at my house with matchmakers, formally proposing. For years, people in the village gossiped about me, saying I was too picky, that I had delayed marriage for too long and had become an unwanted spinster. But in the end, that same spinster became a doctor at the county hospital. And the man she married, a doctor at the same hospital. After marrying Eric, neither of us stopped learning. Years later, when the national college entrance exams were reinstated, I had already given birth to my eldest son. I assumed my time had passed, that it was too late for me. But Eric refused to let me give up. Unlike Luis from my past life who would have left me behind to struggle alone, Eric did the opposite. He hired a nanny to help take care of our son, so that I could have time to study. Because I had never stopped learning, my foundation was strong. Just 2 months later, both Eric and I received our college acceptance letters. And this time, I finally achieved the dream that had been stolen from me in my past life. I was accepted into the military medical university. Chapter 17. Before leaving for university, Eric and I decided to visit my family one last time and introduce our son to my parents. But when we arrived back in the village, we discovered something unexpected. Luis and Emma had been released from prison. Though they were free, their lives were far from good. Emma had always been spoiled and now she was paying the price for her reckless choices. Meanwhile, Luis's parents resented her deeply. After all, it was because of Emma that their son lost his future and ended up in prison for years. Had Luis not been desperate, with no one willing to marry a convict, his family would have never allowed Emma through their door. But Emma never wanted to marry Luis either. What she dreamed of was a high-ranking military officer who could give her a comfortable life. Instead, Luis was a disgraced ex-convict, his reputation forever stained. He would never be successful, never climb the ranks. And Emma, still carrying the stigma of her own prison sentence, had nowhere else to go. So she clung to Luis, despite despising him. Their marriage was a disaster from the start, they fought constantly. Luis would curse Emma, calling her a jinx, blaming her for ruining his life and his true love. Emma would scream back, accusing him of being a coward, too greedy to let go of me yet too weak to commit to her fully. Their toxic resentment boiled over every day. On the very day Eric and I returned home, we walked right into the middle of a scandal. Emma, sick of village life, had seduced a truck driver and planned to run away with him. She stole the last of Luis's family's money and left to elope. But before she could escape, Luis found out. Fueled by rage and humiliation, Luis followed them to the village entrance. And when he saw Emma in the arms of another man, he snapped. With an axe in his hands, he charged at them. The blade swung down, Emma's neck was nearly severed, blood splattering everywhere. The truck driver screamed, but before he could run, Luis hacked off his arm. The villagers rushed to restrain Luis and immediately came to find us. "We need help. You and Eric are doctors, please, save them." But by the time we arrived, Emma was already dead. The truck driver, losing too much blood, was rushed to the hospital. He survived, but with only one arm left, he would never drive again. Luis, now a murderer, was sentenced to death. Before his execution, Luis's parents came to my family home, begging to see me one last time. But by then, Eric and I had already left for university. In this life, I finally had a partner who truly loved me, children who were kind and intelligent, a future that belonged to me alone. The moment I stopped sacrificing myself for others, I finally found happiness.